Back in late April, I did a video asking if Sha'Carri Richardson and Kerley were in trouble. Well, both had competed at a few meets early on in the season, most notably at the two Diamond League meets out in China, Ximen on April 20th and Suzhou on April 27th. Of course, I made a trillion videos since then on both the men's and the women's 100-meter dashes, and throughout the season, we've seen exactly how their year played out for both Fred and Sha'Carri. But I did just want to quickly look back and kind of highlight how, despite not winning gold, maybe not setting personal bests and all that, they both had some very, very good 2024 seasons for various different reasons, despite, again, the slower starts to the year. First off, I stand by my original video that their results early on definitely raised some questions about their current status. I gave the caveat that it was very early and things could change as the season progressed, which, of course, they exactly did that, right? But let's quickly break down their 2024 seasons and why they actually turned out to be very, very successful. First off, Sha'Carri Richardson. Now, this may be a bit out of the norm, I don't know, but it seems like many people are a little more critical of Sha'Carri since she actually didn't win that 100-meter Olympic gold. But I honestly think this was a really, really good year for her. Despite the subpar 200-meter races up in China early on, once Sha'Carri got back to the United States, she immediately hit her stride. 10.83 seconds to win the Prefontaine Classic over what was probably the deepest 100-meter field up to that point. That indicated she was in excellent form and not only ready to make Team USA, but also challenge for an Olympic gold medal. At those US Olympic trials, she did kind of struggle a bit through the rounds, right? Not with her times, but specifically with her start. Sha'Carri has never really had a great start, but because she's so talented, she's been able to make up for it in the second half of her race, right? With that immaculate top end speed, let's just call it out. But despite those slow starts, Sha'Carri ran 10.8 through every round at USA's, capping off the 100 meters at trials with a best of 10.71 seconds. World leading performance, the second fastest time of her career, only behind that 10.65 to win Worlds in 2023. So on paper, in my opinion, Sha'Carri was a favorite for the gold medal, and she was on track to run another 10.6 time later that year. Now, at that point, Sha'Carri had 4 of the top 8 performances in the world that year, and even after Jamaican trials, which were a few days later, she still had 3 of the top 7 performances, with probably her closest competition entering the Olympic Games being Julian Alfred from St. Lucia with her 10.78, which she ran a couple weeks earlier. Now, Sha'Carri did run the 200 meters at the Olympic trials, and she hit her personal best of 21.92 in the semifinals, but she did finish 4th in the final, failing to make the US Olympic team there. But I don't think that had much bearing on her future Olympic results in the 100. Now, unlike 2023, Sha'Carri decided to not compete at any meets between trials and the Olympic Games and just stay focused 100% on Paris. Well, at those Olympic Games, Sha'Carri's start unfortunately did kind of catch up with her, and honestly, she struggled to get out the blocks officially through any of the rounds, right? Now, though she did run 10.9 in the heats and 10.89 in the semifinals, she went on to win the silver medal in the 100, running 10.87 seconds behind Julian Alfred's immaculate 10.72 for the Olympic gold. But as I said, Sha'Carri's starts were atrocious, right? 0.221 in the final as her reaction, 0.191 in the semis, 0.20 in the heats. If you look at any reactions throughout the entire 100-meter rounds or all the heats at the Olympic Games, she was probably had some of the slowest reaction times, throughout. But to be clear, I don't think Sha'Carri would have beat Julian, right? Julian was going to beat anyone that day. She was not losing, but Sha'Carri did leave a lot on the table. Regardless, though, she earned her first ever Olympic medal with that 100-meter silver. Now, she followed that up with a gold medal in the 4x1 along with Melissa Jefferson, TT Terry, Gabby Thomas, and then post-Olympics, she did compete at the Zurich Diamond League as well as the Brussels Diamond League to cap off her 2024 season. In Zurich, she actually took the win ahead of Julian Alfred running 10.84 seconds, but in Brussels, man, she was completely out of it, right? From the start, and then she finished in 8th place, 11.23 seconds, so that was whatever. But on a whole, right, 2024 recap for Sha'Carri ended the year with an Olympic silver in the 100, Olympic gold in the 4x1 at her first Olympic Games, 100-meter world lead of 10.71, her second fastest time ever, and then she also had 3 of the top 7 times in the world and 4 of the top 11 times. That kind of depth was only bettered by Julian Alfred. She also had 2 Diamond League wins over 100 meters, which also is equal with Julian Alfred for the most throughout all the Diamond Leagues in the year. This, in my opinion, was a very successful year. Specifically when comparing it to 2023, right? It may not have been the most highs of winning gold, running 10.7 more times, hitting our personal best of 10.6, but in the grand scheme of Sha'Carri's career, especially when we look at 2019, 2021, 2022, this was way more successful than any of those years. One thing to really keep in mind is for us to kind of expect that linear progression year after year for every athlete is pretty unrealistic, right? Of course, we have these desires to always see these fast times from athletes year in, year out, all the time, right? But that can kind of cloud our understanding of what a successful season can actually look like. So just kind of keep that in mind when we're reflecting a little bit on Sha'Carri's 2024. But let's move over to Fred Kerley. Now, Fred Kerley actually ended off the 2023 season switching coaches, moving over from Allianz Francaise, moved out to California to now be coached by Quincy Watts. At the top of 2024, Fred made his 60-meter indoor debut, which I actually thought was pretty good. He ran, 6.55 seconds, pretty good. But after competing in a few early season meets outdoors, including those 200-meter races in China, things started to be a bit more questionable for Fred. Now, he did run a pretty decent 200 meters in Jamaica, but after that, he went on Twitter and claimed he would break the 100-meter world record the next time he touches a track. Obviously, that didn't happen. He did say he hasn't touched a track yet, but we'll leave that alone. He then was slated to run at the Oslo and Stockholm Diamond Leagues, but pulled out of them, which is, kind of funny, right? I think 2023, him and Marcel were going back and forth. Marcel was pulling out of meets, whatever, right? Things did progress for Fred, but immediately after that, things did kind of, get a little questionable. New York City Grand Prix on June 9th. Fred actually showed up and he lined up ready to race in the 100-meter dash. But this arguably was the definition of what all hell breaking loose, right? Check out the article linked in the description from Chris Chavez at CDS Mag. He was reporting it live while we were on the ground there, actually in communication with, a lot of people. But essentially, Fred parted ways with his sponsor at ASICS, right? He'd been sponsored with ASICS since, I think, early in 2023. But when he was lining up in the 100 meters in New York City, he was actually wearing Puma spikes. But on 2 occasions, he slipped out of the blocks and then eventually never even ran the race. We did speak to him a little bit after, and he was pretty much unfazed about everything. And, heading into trials, he was good. He was ready. No pressure.
Do you feel any pressure going into trials?
Pressure? Nah, pressure is building it up towards this. Pressure is not knowing where you can sleep at night. That's pressure. Track and field is not pressure. It's a lifestyle.
Well, entering trials, he had a best of 10.03 seconds, which made him the 14th fastest American entering the 100-meter dash at trials. But Fred stepped up to the plate big time. He ran a windy 9.89 in the semifinals and then 9.88 in the finals to comfortably finish 3rd place and earn a spot on his 2nd Olympic team and 4th consecutive global 100-meter team. Now, similar to Sha'Carri, Fred skipped out on any meets after the trials, and his sole focus was the Paris Olympic Games. Well, enter Paris. This is where he once again stepped up and shined on the biggest stage. 9.97 in the heats, 9.84 in the semis, and then 9.81 in the final to win a bronze medal in the 100-meter dash in his 4th fastest performance of his entire career. And also, shout out to the immaculate reaction time, 0.108 from the blocks. Fred was kind of cooking out. That was crazy. But let me add a little bit more context here as well. Andre DeGrasse, Justin Gatlin, Usain Bolt, Maurice Green, Otto Bolden, Frankie Fredericks, Carl Lewis, Linford Christie, Lennox Miller, Ralph Metcalf. What do they all have in common? All are legends in the sport, and Fred adds his name to that list of guys who have won multiple 100-meter medals at the Olympic Games. Crazy, right? Now, the 4x1 obviously didn't go the way for the United States, but Fred still left Paris with another piece of hardware to add to his collection. After the Olympics, he went onto the circuit and he grabbed a 100-meter win at the Silesia Diamond League, right? He ran 9.87 seconds. Then he got 3rd place in Rome and 3rd place in Brussels. Even more notable to me personally, though, his 200-meter performances. 19.86 in Lausanne, 19.81 in Zurich. The latter being his 4th fastest time ever.
1981, season's best, getting progressively better. I mean, how'd that feel out there?
Ain't feel like I ran, but that's the point. Whole staying grounded and being disciplined. So 1981's 3rd 200 of the season, I think I take that.
Yeah.
I haven't peaked yet, so on to next season with the 200. So thanks for playing.
So let's recap Fred Kerley's 2024 season. He ended the year with an Olympic bronze medal in the 100-meter dash, winning his 2nd consecutive Olympic medal. 100-meter best of 9.81 seconds, his 4th fastest time ever, and ranked him number 4 in the world this year. 200-meter best of 19.81, his 4th fastest time ever, ranked him number 7 in the world this year. And sure, this on the surface might seem a pretty slim amount of success, but similar to Sha'Carri, I think this was a very, very successful year, but actually for the opposite reason of Sha'Carri. In 2023, Fred didn't have the greatest season. He missed the World Championship final, and only one of his 100-meter performances that year ended up in his top 10 all time, right? But this year, despite changing coaches at the end of 2023, despite parting ways with his sponsor a few weeks before Olympic trials, despite only being the 14th, fastest guy entering the US Olympic trials, and then only the 8th fastest guy entering the Olympic Games, he still came away with another Olympic medal in the most competitive and deepest 100-meter final in the history of the sport. Shout out to 2012. But personally, what I think is more important and really what I want to highlight is there's varying levels of success for different athletes. Sure, we're going to hold different athletes to different standards based on, what they've done in the past and the different expectations that we put on them, right? Maybe they're just coming out of the NCAA. Maybe they're coming back from having a child. Maybe they're coming back from injury, or they switched coaches, or even they had a string of gold medals at these major championships. All these different things are going to factor into how we judge an athlete's success from year to year. But in my personal opinion, when it comes to Fred and Sha'Carri, I would probably call their 2024s a success, and they definitely turned the tables on how I personally felt all the way back in April. But let me know what you think. Always appreciate y'all. Thanks for watching.